Madness. What else would you do at 10 o'clock on a Sunday morning?
Hello and a very warm welcome to the Adventure Show. This month we're near Oban for the Craggy Island Triathlon. It takes place on the island of Kerrera over there. I'll be getting a ferry, not so our competitors, who'll have to swim the first part of this gruelling race. And I can tell you, water is pretty cold.
Oh. Terrified?
Really?
Yes.
What's worrying you?
It's my first proper triathlon. It's different, it's off-road. It's third time I've been in open water. So yeah, you can see why I'm terrified.
But that swim is just the start. From there, it gets tougher as the racers complete a challenging mountain bike circuit of the southern half of the island before tackling a wild and boggy run through the centre of it. The three parts of this race are taxing in themselves, but there's a sting in the tail of all triathlons, and that's how quick a turnaround competitors can make between each discipline.
For any triathlon, the really crucial part of the race where you can make up time or really lose time is in the transition zone. Here, the first transition is from swimming to mountain biking. There, strip off the wetsuit, get into your biking shoes, get the bike ready and get out as fast as possible. So then they've got a 15-kilometre ride and come back into transition where you're going to get off the bike and into your running gear. Good luck.
Preparation is key to success here, with the added complication that everyone must bring all their kit over to the island before heading back to the mainland for the start of the race. So, if you've left anything on the wrong side of the water, you'll have to manage without.
Well, the fact that I've left my running shoes in the car over there is the first thing that I'm trying to sort out.
You do know that the wetsuits are compulsory in this race?
No, I've decided I don't need it anymore.
Good, that's pretty tough.
I definitely didn't put it on backwards.
And the good thing is that no one noticed. It's not going to be on the telly or anything. It's the very first time a triathlon's been held on this tiny island. This is technically a sprint race. It may be a shorter course, but there are many challenges in store for the competitors.
I'm unaware of another race in the world that swims from the mainland to an island. I just don't think it happens anywhere else, and I think that's caught people's imaginations.
Fabulous. Any chance for a pool?
I'm hearing from a few people, I've not seen it myself, that the bike section is pretty technical.
It's got its moments, yeah. There's a couple of little descents on the far side of the island that are steep and scrabbly, rocky and loose, and the unwary may well come a cropper on a couple of those. And there's also a section that takes you down round the Island Castle itself. It's a wee bit kind of roller coastery, nice grassy and smooth, but it's up and down, twisty turny, and yeah, there's some technical stuff in there.
And the run itself, it's a 4K run, but...
Yeah, it's got a slight twist though. You start at sea level, you go to the highest point on the island, and you come all the way back down again and finish at Island Castle. And there aren't really any tracks up there. It's proper, rough, open, tussocky, heathery, brackeny hillside. It's going to be great.
Also in this month's Adventure Show, we'll be discovering more about the island of Kerara and its history. We'll find out why one woman believes the best way to travel is by open canoe, and we'll be joining Cameron McNeish as he heads into the Scottish hills.
It's on the mountain tops that we are in wild Scotland. It's on the mountain tops that we see so much of the wildlife that we talk about. Even today, we have been watching the antics of a couple of raven who are really playing in this very, very strong, gusty wind. But first to the Kerara Triathlon. It's just after 9 o'clock in the morning. I'm at the start and there really is a sense of nervous excitement.
There are slippy rocks, there is mud, there are puddles, right?
Over 200 people entered this brand new race. Conditions today are wonderful. There are no waves out there, the swim shouldn't be too bad, but the race for every competitor is going to be extremely tough.
Just trying to keep calm really, thinking about swim stroke and not trying to take in too much of the seawater, which will be the key for today I think.
It's freezing water, it hits your face, you can't breathe properly and then you're off and you're trying to swim fast and you can't breathe, which makes it it's hard work.
I've been in a reservoir once and that's it.
Really?
Yeah, and it was cold and it was not the best experience in the world, but yeah, I'll give it a go.
You know what, actually, I'm really looking forward to it because usually when I sight open water I seem to zigzag across, so I'm hoping that because it's a straight line it should be easier, but then I'm also wondering what the currents are going to be like.
When you're standing at the beginning of the start of the race, what are you thinking about?
I'm thinking this is ridiculous. It's Sunday morning and I'm in the water. But then I managed to flip my psychology and I'm like, no, it's fine, this is amazing. And then usually I look up and I look around and I'm like, I love off-road, this is why I do it.
And here we go, the start of the Kerrera Triathlon 2011 550 metre swim. From the ferry slip at Galanock, across the Sound of Kerrera onto the island itself. Beautiful conditions today. There were concerns that the Sound of Kerrera could get pretty choppy, but the sun is out, slight breeze, perfect conditions for this first ever Kerrera Triathlon. After the swim, they head to 15 kilometres off-road on mountain bikes, on Land Rover and quad tracks and paths. Pretty technical section it is as well. And then they finish off with a 4 kilometre off-road run up the hill on Kerrera, right up to the trig point, over 600 feet of climbing, and then down towards the castle and the end of the race. But that's a long, long way away. At the moment, it's all about the swim.
The start is always an absolute melee. You've got people arms around your neck, you know, and the water's going in your mouth, and it's just really hard fighting for your own little bit of space. And after that, it's about getting into a rhythm and having a little peek up every now and then to make sure you're not going massively off course.
I've only swam in lakes before and it's nice and still usually. This is going to be totally different salt water as well, and I'm not really sure what to expect. It's going to be a challenge, yeah.
The swim in particular is one of those things that people find hard. It's probably the barrier to entry to triathlon, and here that's no exception. There's a certain amount of kind of trepidation of going across the sea. It's lumpy and bumpy out there, for sure.
Organisers had to make sure, as this is a fairly busy channel, that the ferry wasn't running this morning, that we're on slack water so that there's no tide running through the channel at this point. Already the field really spread out. And just as I speak, the wind started to blow down the channel here in the Sound of Kerrera, and that will start to push some of the competitors away down towards Oban. But a few already are going nowhere.
Yeah, I'm a really poor swimmer, but you tend to find anyway in off-road triathlons that it's not really people that are good swimmers that are doing it. It's really people that are mountain bikers or hill runners, and they just get to swim out of the way.
Actually getting onto the island, the first 550 metres I think will be the hardest one. The rest of the kilometres will take care of themselves.
I have had to learn to swim for this virtually. I mean, I could swim breaststroke till, forever, but I've had to learn front crawl for this.
Even though it is slack water, there's still a slight current running, so you'll see the swimmers heading up into the left and then drifting back down onto the slipway. Some of these competitors really serious, some of the top end guys and girls, and some people here for their first ever triathlon, just testing it out to see how they get on. But for every single person here, it's a serious, serious challenge. This swim is a tough one. So for the faster racers, way out in front, very, very strong indeed. Probably about 30 yards ahead of the rest of the pack.
Towards the end, you start to try and get some blood into your legs, because otherwise when you get out of the water, you're all a bit wobbly and things. If you can start kicking with the last few minutes, then it helps kind of stabilise you when you get out.
At the moment in transition, everything is peaceful and quiet. The swimmers are in the water just now, and it's only when their feet will hit the concrete of the jetty will they start thinking about how they're going to make their transition, where their bike is, how quickly they're going to do it, and then it's straight out onto the hill.
It's over 8 minutes into the race and the fastest competitors are already close to Kerrera. That's an astonishing achievement. Out in the lead is former Scottish national and international swimmer Stephen McEwen from Glenrothes. He's completed this part of the race in just 9 minutes 48 seconds, well ahead of his nearest rival. But there's a group of 5 chasing him, and currently in second place is one of Britain's top female triathletes, Kerry McPhee.
Well, that was a pretty impressive swim. That'll go to plan?
Yeah, I usually struggle with this swim, so I was really pleased with that. Really pleased.
Are you warm? Just kind of trying to get the muscles working.
Finger's a bit cold, but won't take long to warm up, hopefully.
Good luck.
Thank you.
A slick transition for Kerry McPhee as she heads onto her bike. She's now neck and neck with the first person out of the water, Stephen McEwen. Kerry's currently ranked second in the UK, so she's an expert in this extra crucial discipline in triathlon, the transition. It's a real art, and vital seconds can be won or lost here.
You're cold in the water, you've got to get out of a wetsuit, it's quite awkward, and then immediately you've got to change the way your legs work. That's a very difficult thing to do.
It is quite difficult to get going sometimes. The bike course starts with quite a big climb actually. I have this underneath my wetsuit, so I'll be quite cold coming out of the swim, but it's not a problem on this bike course because I'm hoping to be quite warm after maybe 5 minutes.
The legs have just come off a swim, they may be a bit cramped, you've just tried to get out of a wetsuit. You need to make sure that you don't suddenly crank up a hard gear and make it look as if you're tough, because you're not hardcore, you'll just collapse, you'll probably rack your gears as well.
I've found you don't have very good balance once you come out of the water, so if you've got nothing to hold on to when you're trying to pull the wetsuit off, you can sort of topple over, which doesn't look very professional. But yeah, and just having your kit laid out really well organised, so you know you get your helmet on, you get your shoes on and everything, and out of transition as quickly as possible. Because I think I passed so many people in transition that were trying to put socks on wet feet, and you just don't bother. I don't think it's worth it.
Back on the jetty, most of the competitors have taken less than 12 minutes for the swim, which is pretty impressive. They're now starting up the first hill of the off-road bike section. But for quite a few swimmers, there's still a long, long way to go. We're taking a short break from the action here on Kerrera. Right now, we're leaving the water to join Cameron McNeish on terra firma as he heads into the Scottish hills.
I've just left the shores of Loch Earn in Stirlingshire, and I'm climbing up through the historic lands of the Stuarts of Vorlich towards two very popular Munros, Ben Vorlich and Stuchachroin. I always think this Glen Vorlich is a magical kind of place, especially in a lovely autumn morning like this one. And the house that I passed at the foot of the glen, at Vorlich House, has a couple of stones in it, or at least used to have a couple of stones in it. I don't know whether they're still there. And they had magical qualities. One of them, the Craggy, you used to be able to dip it in a bucket of water, twirl it round 3 times sunwise, and the water took on healing qualities in the diseases and infections in cattle. The other stone that's in the house, the Glen Bucket stone, was similar. If the woman of the house twirled the Glen Bucket stone around 3 times sunwise, then anybody who drank that water would have their wishes fulfilled. Nice stories, whether they're true or not, I have no idea. But I know my wish today is that this weather stays the same all day long. The forecast is for rain and strong winds, but I'm kind of wishing that the sun just stays like it is at the moment. The estate here is very keen for walkers to stick to the footpaths to avoid damaging the remnants of heather here in Glen Vorlich. And at this time of the year, when the heather becomes this beautiful purple, you can fully understand why this lovely plant has become synonymous with the Scottish Highlands. But there's another wee plant that you might find in between the heather, this little yellow plant called tormental. And it's said in days gone by, this was a cure for nervous diarrhea. Now, it won't be any great problem going up Ben Vorlich, but anybody who doesn't like steep ground might want to take a few mouthfuls of this before they go up Stuchachroin. That's the summit ridge just ahead of us, Ben Vorlich, 3,232 feet. In many ways, this is my favourite time of the year. It's certainly a toss-up between autumn and spring. In springtime, I know I've got the whole of the summer to look forward to. In autumn, I know I've got the winter to look forward to. But we generally get better periods of good weather in autumn, and there's something kind of special about the hills when they take on this sort of brown, ochre-coloured hue that you don't get at other times of the year. Plus this anticipation that winter is just around the corner. It's almost time to start looking out the cold gear, looking out the ice axes and crampons for what we hope will be another good winter. I think we're picking up the tail end of the hurricane that swept up the east coast of America. And it certainly feels hurricane force today. Over in the Alps there's a couple of mountains called Pollux and Castor. They're the celestial twins of the Bernese Oberland. And here in Scotland we have quite a number of Munros that we kind of twin together. We think of the likes of Ben More and Stubinian, or these two that we're on today, Ben Vorlich and Stucachroin. And yet these two couldn't be more different. Ben Vorlich has a nice footpath running away up to the summit, and Stucachroin, there's no real paths to speak of. It's rugged, it's steep, involves a bit of scrambling, so certainly quite different. Oh, wow, Ben Vorlich. It means the hill of the sea bay, and I assume that's named after one of the bays down in Loch Earn. And it's not to be confused with the other Ben Vorlich in the Aaracher Alps. It's about a good eagle's flight over in that direction to the west. Well, that's the easy one done. The real difficulty in this wind will be scrambling up onto Stucachroin across there. One of the great beauties of hill walking in Scotland, when you're on the top there's always this great kind of sense of wildness, and I think that's maybe what attracts a great number of us to the hills, because once you're above the sort of forestry line then you are in a land that's not dictated to by agriculture. There's not paths and tracks all over the place. You kind of really are in the wildness of Scotland, particularly when you go above 2,000 feet. It's on the mountain tops that we are in wild Scotland. I think another reason why I enjoy this particular part of Scotland is the land of my ancestors. The McNeishes were a set of the Clan MacGregor, and this is all Clan MacGregor territory. Rob Roy MacGregor himself was buried not very far from here at Balwhidder in the churchyard there. And my own clan, McNeish, lived just at the far end of Loch Earn, and it's said that they had a pretty fierce battle with the traditional enemies, the MacNabs, and the McNeishes were pretty well annihilated. The story goes that only one boy survived that fight. So there's a few McNeishes left today, not many of us, but there's a few. We probably all come from that one lad who survived that fight on Nishu's Isle at the far end of Loch Earn. Now that wasn't too bad, was it? When you look across here from Ben Vorlich at this black face of Stucachroin, it looks almost impossible. But when you get close to it, when you get beneath that face, it kind of rears back, and all you have to do is follow the zigzag path up through the crags. And as scrambling routes go, it's fairly benign. But we're not at the summit yet. It's 200 or 300 metres that way. It's a disappointingly flat summit for such a nice wee scrambly route. But here we are, Stucachroin. And I guess I've been quite lucky today. I've had 2 of my wishes granted. The wind has decreased quite a bit and I didn't need the Tormentil on the scrambly bit. But granted wishes are not important on a day like this, because beyond the Carse of Stirling I've got the whole of the lowlands in front of me. And round this side I've got the whole of the Trossachs arrayed before me. And then to the north, all the hills of Breadalbane. I tell you, it doesn't get much better than this.
Welcome back to Kerrera, and before we head to the Craggy Island Triathlon, we're going to find out a little bit more about this small island and its history. And I'll be with Duncan McKechnie, who was born and brought up on the island. And I'll be catching up with Duncan's partner Susan, who runs the local tea shop here. I think I'm getting a reputation for someone that eats a lot of cake.
And I'm visiting the spectacular and rather tragic Guyland Castle, a 16th century monument to bad strategic planning.
The island is around 5 square miles in size and is home to around 40 people. Now, it's just a short hop and skip from the mainland, but unless you want to plunge into the water like our hardy triathletes, you have to get here by boat.
It's a vital lifeline service in the full context of the phrase. Royal Mail, Hydroelectric, British Telecom, farmers, hay, fuel, coal, sheep. Everything goes across in Guide and Ladies, and it runs 7 days a week all year long.
Christmas Day, New Year's Day?
The 2 days that I do get off is Christmas Day and New Year's Day, but I have been known to do odd trips on those days as well. It's a commercial ferry, and there's been a lot of talk about subsidies, and there's a big national review to introduce road equivalent tariff. And we're watching with interest to see how that would impact on Kerrera.
How about getting around an island? Is it easy or is it challenging as well?
It's very challenging, and the roads in the island are very basic. There's just farm tracks and they're very narrow. They overgrow with vegetation in the summertime. There's no road linking the north and the south, so you actually have two communities within the island of Kerara, on the north end and the south end, and it makes for very interesting practicalities.
Tell me a wee bit about your history with the island.
Born and brought up on the island and went to the local primary school when it was still open. You have total freedom to roam around, and you're not worried about buses or lorries or traffic or any of the other modern trappings. You're just left to roam naturally and freely and roam in and out of people's houses and get fed wherever you turn up, and very relaxed and laid back, as it should be.
Today there are several young families on Kerara, including Jill Vollum, her husband Tom and their son Oliver. Like Duncan, Jill was born and brought up on the island.
I went to primary school on the island. There were 7 of us, 7 kids in my primary school. It's the church building down the road. One big classroom, all of us at different tables in there, according to what year we were in. One teacher. It was magic.
But there's not enough kids on the island at the moment.
There's 4 of them of preschool age, not enough to set up a school.
So you've been investigating homeschooling. What's happening with that?
I can homeschool him myself, which I'm a little bit reluctant to do because I don't want him to be homeschooled on his own. But if we set up a school that has Ollie and Echen and if James and Alexandra, the twins at the top, then I think we run into problems with insurance.
And what would be the alternative if that doesn't work?
The way it's worked at the north end, his parents would put them on the boat, take them across, a taxi would pick them up from the other side and take them into school. And then if the weather looked like it was coming in, then the parents, Karen and David, would phone up the taxi company and the school and say, can you go and collect the kids and put them on the boat to come back? Because I think originally they were told, you know, well, if the child can't get back, then it's all right, we can put him up in a hostel. And Karen was going, he'll be 5. You know, that's not right.
Well, it's certainly been an interesting school life, eh? It's not a big quickle, it's not a walk down the corner to go to school.
I have a kind of romantic idea of them paddling in, him and Echen, paddling in together to school, kind of getting a couple of kayaks and off we go.
Today, Kerara is a vibrant place both to visit and to live. But the island has had a turbulent past.
The castle was built here by the chief of the Clan MacDougall in 1587. Basically to control access from Mull to the mainland, to control the cattle trading and some of the ports. But 65 years later, something dramatic and tragic happened. So the MacDougalls obviously thought this was a very strong and strategic and safe place to hide up. And this fantastic oriel window above me has 2 huge holes in it where the defenders would literally drop rocks and obstacles and boiling water or oil or whatever they had on people trying to get through the main door. However, it didn't work out that way. In 1647, a Covenanter group of troops attacked and laid siege to the MacDougall garrison in the castle. All seemed to go well, and the MacDougalls held out for quite some time, so the story goes, until they ran out of water. The well that was in the castle was not sufficient to sustain the troops, and eventually they had to surrender. They were all massacred, bar one MacDougall's son. So the castle was then ransacked, and the Clan MacDougall lost their most precious possession, the brooch of Lorne, which, as legend has it, was attached to Robert the Bruce's cloak. Since the sacking, the castle has remained roofless and uninhabited.
While Duncan's looking to the past, I'm looking to the future. Today there's a much warmer welcome for visitors. I'm taking a break at Kerara's only cafe. The tea garden here is now run by Susan Marshall, much to her own surprise.
I just came up for the summer to work here. I mean, at the end of the season, the people that were running it were leaving, and so I took over, and that's been me ever since.
Did you have any experience at all of running a tea room or a cafe?
No. On the first day, Joe said, "If you just want to rustle up a soup and some," and I was like, oh. And that was when it dawned on me that actually I had to do all the cooking, and I had no idea how to cook for large quantities.
What about producing food on the island? Is that possible?
Well, we do try to grow some things in the vegetable garden, but as the summer gets busier and busier, that then becomes quite difficult keeping on top of all of that. We do have salads and chives and potatoes and a few things that we grow. I make everything from scratch. I bake all the cakes and the scones and make my own bread by hand. No bread machines, just the traditional way. So they're getting not a lot of choice, but very, hopefully, good quality foods.
What is it about Kerrera that's kept you here?
Oh, it's just such a special place. It's a beautiful, beautiful island, and it's quite unique because you're not a million miles away from the mainland, but that wee ferry ride and you feel lovely and remote and all this space.
Welcome back to the Craggy Island Triathlon, and after completing the first of 3 disciplines, already there are some pretty tired bodies out there.
I can't believe I survived all that. It is cold, very cold, but I'll be fine once I get my socks on, I'll be okay.
I need my glasses. I can't see that with glasses on.
Out on the bike, Kerry McPhee, who finished second in the swim, is now leading the race. She stole the lead from Stephen McEwen during the transition and is now powering up the first hill.
I'll really push in the climbs, and then as soon as I get to the top of the climb, I think, don't stop pushing, keep going. I find a lot of people maybe ease off a little bit on the climbs. I don't know if that's me just using my psychology to kind of get ahead, and then people might ease off on the downhill because it feels like they're going fast. So that's the kind of thing I tell myself. I just say go for it. Relax my elbows and just go for it and enjoy it.
A wee way behind in second place is veteran racer Di Gittins. Di finished in the top 10 in the World Championships earlier this year. The first place swimmer, Stephen McEwen, has already fallen behind, and both he and Di are being chased hard by adventure racer and Ironman athlete Sean McFarlane, whose tactics for the bike section are different from most other competitors.
I've picked a cyclocross bike for the bike course, and I think I've seen actually one other cyclocross bike, and I biked the course yesterday and I'm not sure that's the right choice.
The difference, of course, being that a cyclocross bike has got smaller tyres.
It's got thinner tyres. It's basically just it's a racer with drop handlebars, but with slightly thicker tyres than a racer, obviously. But I'm not sure it's the right bike today, but we'll see.
Further back, the rest of the pack are heading up the first hill, and they're still recovering from the swim.
Well, the swim was pretty cold. Getting better now the swim's done.
Is it hard?
I just don't know how to swim, that's the problem.
Really hard, really cold, but yeah, it was good. So I'm just hoping it gets better. How are you doing?
Not well. Hard work so far.
Oh, brutal. Feeling okay. Biking's my best bit. It's my first one, so I've got no idea how I'm going to feel.
Taking a traditional triathlon and making it into an off-road event is a recent idea. It's a pretty brutal way to spend your weekend. So, what's the attraction?
Because they get really muddy and it's really fun.
It's a good all-over and all-round fitness. The nice thing is you don't have to be fantastic at anything.
And do you particularly like off-road ones as opposed
yeah.
to sea? Why is that?
Much more interesting. Otherwise you just get tarmac boredom. Not much tarmac out here, is there? Yeah. If you find any, can you tell me?
I love the fact that it's a bit diverse. I love the fact that people who take part in triathlon, particularly the off-road variety of triathlon, are a wee bit kind of hardy and they don't require their hand holding. They just get on with it.
And they're hard as nails.
Most of them are, in fact, hard as nails and slightly nutty.
I think it's just the challenge. It's all different aspects. You're cycling, you're running, you're swimming. So the training's never boring, and it's in great settings, and you can't ask for much more on a day like this.
because the terrain's different, different people are better at hills, different people are better at rough ground, and actually that's quite enjoyable because you see different people in the event that you would normally see who would disappear off on like a road triathlon because they're much better road runners, but maybe once the terrain's a bit rougher they come back towards you.
Is it important then not to kind of panic if people are getting away in front of you because you know that your strength is running?
Well, you just enjoy it, and you know that if you go out far too hard on the bike, well, you're going to really, really struggle on the run and not enjoy the run.
Because I'm a slightly weaker swimmer, usually when I get out, there's like hundreds of cyclists ahead of me. And so it's really good fun then. You can just pick them off, just hammer a line along the right-hand side or something and just pick up as many cyclists as possible. So that's usually my target, is see somebody up ahead and then try and catch them up.
Some of it gets technical, some of it is steep, and some of the steep hills are very loose gravel and chucky stones that's on it which could easily throw you off the bike. So it's not going to be straightforward. It is a mountain bike and it's accurately described as a mountain bike.
Out on the course, and many of the athletes are right at their limit. This is one of the hardest bits, and John Anderson has had a serious tumble.
Are you all right, mate?
In events like this, everyone must be prepared to help out, and our cameraman is no exception.
You all right, mate? Can you get a medic down there? Yep.
First indications suggest that John has suffered nothing worse than bad bruising.
Just sit down. Okay, it's okay. Slow down.
But he's taken to Oban Hospital for a thorough checkup. He'll certainly remember his first Craggy Triathlon. Meanwhile, the other racers continue on to the castle at the southern tip of the island.
Brilliant. If I could see and breathe, it would help.
Ironman is definitely easier. I think I need to do a little bit of practicing on off-road. It's really quite difficult. I'm a bit scary at times, I have to say. I better get back on this. Otherwise, everyone's going to have gone home by the time I get there. You know, tea and cakes left. Yeah.
Meanwhile, at the head of the race, the lead has changed. Alex Johnson from Oban is now out in front, in spite of a poor start to the race.
Horrific swim. That's my first open water swim ever, and it was just really quite brutal. I ended up doing breaststroke for the majority of it, so I think I got out of the water in about 100th or something.
Really?
So I had quite a lot to do on the bike. I got through transition with a couple of teammates, so we just absolutely went for it on the bike.
Alex's teammate, Chris Bell, is right behind him. This is only Chris's second triathlon, but he's really strong on the bike.
I spent the last 2 summers as a mountain bike guide in the French Alps, but I'm not used to short courses like this. In the instruction manual for the race, they said just go off as fast as you possibly can on the bike and wait until you taste blood. So I think that's the plan.
Still out with the leading pack, Kerry McPhee has dropped down a few places, but she's still way ahead of her nearest female rival and putting most of the men to shame.
It's tough, but it's good tough. So you know if you're going up a climb that there's going to have to be a down. And it keeps you going, it really pushes you and makes you dig in, and that's the part I love about it. And I love it that it's up in the countryside and it's wide open and lots of unknown elements, especially when you're doing a race organised by Paul McGreal.
How did you get into this in the first place?
I only started doing triathlon about maybe a couple of years ago, and my first off-road was roughly about this time last year. It was the Dirty Triathlon, and it went quite well, and since then I've kind of progressed. It's just brilliant, I just love it, and we're in the perfect location. I mean, Scotland and off-road are, you know, perfect marriage, aren't they? Especially on a morning like today.
For the men, Sean McFarlane is now sitting in 5th place. Right behind him is Mick Nally from Dunfermline, and then it's local man Stephen McInnes. This is only Stephen's 3rd triathlon, and like Sean McFarlane, he's opted for a cyclocross bike.
I'm kind of new to the sport, really. I mean, I'm a hill runner, mountain biker, but the swimming, I'm not a swimmer. I think I was out of the water probably about 80th position, something which was pretty terrible, but managed to get back in the bike, so I was pleased with that.
The competitors are now scattered throughout the course, and the leaders are approaching the next transition, a leap out of the saddle to swap bikes for running shoes. But there's a surprise for the organisers, with the leaders being faster than expected. Alex Johnston and Chris Bell are the first in.
Well, much quicker than expected. We have the first 2 cyclists in, both of them from Nevis Cycles in Fort William. So, quick transition into the running. That was a pretty good cycle, eh?
Yeah, it's all good. The bike felt good too. Helmet, better remove that.
Right, he's just good luck.
Nearly a minute behind the leading pair is John Woodrow. He came in third in the dirty triathlon early this year, so is someone to watch out for. Hard on his heels is Stephen McInnes, and there's only about 20 seconds between these two.
Right, do you think the choice of the cyclocross bike was the wise thing today?
Perfect. Perfect. It was a bit of a dodgy decision beforehand, but it turned out to be perfect.
Transition is both pressured and confusing. While Stephen nearly heads off the wrong way, Sean McFarlane has made a super quick change and is powering out ahead of him.
The legs are a little bit sore, but you tend to find after 500 metres that your legs calm down. Initially when you get off the bike, your legs are saying no more, but then through experience you kind of know that pain will go away, hopefully, and it usually does. So we'll see, but I'm looking behind you and seeing the hill that we go up, so I'm not too sure today.
Still having an incredible race, Kerry McPhee enters transition in 6th place overall.
So, impressive cycle, all good?
Yeah, so far so good. Fingers crossed. I don't feel it too much in the run. Oh.
Legs working.
Hopefully.
Good luck.
Usually towards the end of the bike, I'll maybe get into a bit of a lower gear and get my legs spinning a little bit quicker, just get the blood flowing to the legs and get that kind of running motion. And then as soon as I jump off the bike, it's just go for it, just push hard. And when you've got a hill, your legs are going to hurt anyway, aren't they? So just do it, just go for it.
We'll be rejoining the action here on Kerrera shortly. Now we're back to the mainland to join an expert paddler who says there's no better way to travel through the Scottish landscape.
Paddling allows you to be part of the landscape, I think, more than walking through it or biking through it, because you're taking your time more often. You're often getting the chance just to explore around little corners that you wouldn't necessarily get to by walking.
An instructor at our National Outdoor Centre, Glenmore Lodge, Nancy Chambers is passionate about canoeing and the journeys it leads her on. Her expeditions have taken her to Norway, Canada, and across the length and breadth of Scotland. Today, with water levels looking good, she's heading out on a trip down the River Spey.
So I've got my paddles, I've got a throw bag, and I've got my helmet. So what I'm putting on just now is some swim lines and them on the back of the boat, my rescue bag, repair kit just in case, and buoyancy aid. We'll have a few other bits and pieces as well. So right now we've just started on the River Spey, and we're doing a little section from Ballindalach down to Nacandu. Beautiful section of river, nice grade 1, grade 2, and today the water level is a fantastic level. It should be big and bouncy, but not too scary, so it should be great. Looking forward to it. For me, the open boating is definitely the journeying side. Love it. Love being able to get away, go for a couple of days, even if it's just half a day, and just getting out in the boat and going from A to B. It's all about the journeying. Steering the boat is nice and easy. As I'm coming along, what I'm doing is I put my power in and then I'll twist my blade and then I can manoeuvre the boat around or back again with the single blade. If I'm moving really quickly, I can just use the blade as a rudder there, and that's the general steering. Just going to cross the river a wee bit here, just so we get onto the best line for going down the rapid. I love being in the wilderness, absolutely love it. There's no feeling like it, but being in the wilderness where making every decision and every decision has to count, it's really, it brings a new edge to it, and it's a fantastic feeling to, at the end of the day, to get down a section of river or across a section of loch where you've made all these decisions and you've come out of it perfectly, and you're sitting there around the campfire at night having a cup of tea, spinning a yarn, chatting about what you got on today and what wildlife you've seen, where you've been, and just having a good time with some of your mates as well. It's great. We've got the first little rapid just coming up, and we're just going to go down the centre of it, and just a couple of little waves. You're standing up in your boat, having a look, seeing what's going on as you're going down there. Every decision has to count. It's really, it brings a new edge to it, and it's a fantastic feeling. Yeah, brilliant fun. Our parents were really into the outdoors, and they sent me on a kayaking course, I think, when I was probably about 12 or 13. And then I went to work at a sailing school when I was about 18, and they did a bit of sea kayaking there, and that really got me into it. And then from there, I've just had a history of sea kayaking, canoeing, river kayaking since then. This little section here is, we've got an area called Craggy Island, and there's a old railway bridge just behind us, or just in front of us. And there's a real nice little camping spot for the Speyside Way folks up there, and it's great for camping if you're doing a speed descent as well. When you're travelling at the river has some input into the pace that you're going at as well. So sometimes you'll be going at 15k an hour because the river's taking you at that speed. Sometimes you'll be going at less than 2k an hour because you're battling into a headwind or you're trying to move upriver. If it's a big whitewater section, there's always butterflies. There's always that anticipation of what's going on and what's going to happen. Then you get a bit of a view of the river. You're starting to think about the line that you're taking, whether you want to take the yeehaw line or whether you want to take the dry line. The yeehaw line is definitely the wettest line, best fun, bounciest line possible. And yeah, brilliant fun. You can't beat it sometimes. But there are other times when you want to stay dry as well. Love that rapid. It's such a nice rapid. The river height might be exactly the same, the boulders might be exactly the same, but each time you'll take a slightly different line down it, or you'll be with different people, or the weather around you is different. It just makes it a different experience. It's not always the paddling, it's being out in the environment and the people that you're with, I think, that make it.
Sharing her passion for canoeing is Nancy Chambers from Scotland's National Outdoor Centre at Glenmore Lodge. But if you're keen to record your exploits in the outdoors, then we may be able to help. Kendall Mountain Festival is one of the biggest in the world, and during the festival there's an adventure film academy for aspiring camera people, editors, producers and directors. This year, for the first time, it's been run in association with the Adventure Show and BBC Sport Scotland. Not only does it offer the chance to learn from leading industry professionals, but students make their own short films, and we hope to showcase some of those later in the series.
I signed up for the Adventure Film Academy because I've been thinking about doing a filmmaking course for a while, so when I saw the Adventure one, that was perfect because I'm quite outdoorsy. And I really think it's one of the best courses I've ever been on. It's just changed my whole world. From that, I started working as the intern on the Adventure Show, so I've been involved in all kinds of events and trips and had real hands-on experience in adventure filmmaking.
It takes people who are from all walks of life but have an interest in adventure sports, which can be climbing, it can be kayaking, it can be mountain biking, and it really teaches them the absolute basics of camera work and editing so that they can go out and record their exploits.
Today's course is there's a swim down at the pool just down there. It's a 400 metre swim. And there's a cycle route which goes around Ingleborough. It's just about 23 miles, I believe, which is quite a tough ride. And then there's a run up Ingleborough, which is 7 miles and 2,000 foot climb.
From the first day, we were out with the cameras, and although I really wanted to do filming, I was quite nervous about the first time I actually did some filming. We were out with some mountain bikers, and they really threw you into the deep end. There's so much practical work.
We have a strong belief that the best way that people learn skills is by doing, and for that reason we really try to avoid too much talking. We really like to get people engaged very early on, get lots of hands-on with equipment, learn by making mistakes. So from day one, it's all go.
We tend to use Sony V1E HDV cameras. We're using GoPros as well, especially being in the outside environment. GoPros tend to be quite bulletproof. They're used all over nowadays. But you can also do some quite interesting tricks with them as well. The editing skills that you would tend to get would probably be the equivalent of like 4 weeks of training. It's importing footage, it's splitting it up into different bins, it's working with markers, working with in points, working with out points, working with a timeline, using transitions, using text, trimming, rolling, rippling, you name it. We do the lot, but we do it in an immensely condensed amount of time. It's a rollercoaster ride of fun, to be honest. It's good.
I just completed a BA in film and TV production, and I saw the course advertised online that was linking directly to adventure filmmaking and working directly with industry professionals, and with them giving you tips and guidance was really beneficial. So you might be doing something away you thought was good, but then one of them would say, "Ooh, think about it in this way," and it kind of opens your eyes up to completely new practices, which was really good.
The Film Academy is great because you really are working with the people that are at the top of their game. They've worked on all the kind of major adventure films and series that are going on at the moment, so you know you're getting the best tuition that you can, and you never feel kind of afraid to ask questions or have a go at things, because they're really supportive and they just want you to get stuck in really and have a go.
A gentleman should always raise his hat to any passing lady.
The Adventure Film Academy is a week-long course. After 3 days of intensive tuition, there's just 2 days left for participants to make their own short film. A chance to take an initial idea right through to a finished product.
The film has to be no real longer than 2 minutes. We found that 2 minutes is actually a perfect length because it's achievable in 48 hours, and people think, oh, 48 hours, it's massive, you could make a lot longer than that. But this has to be to professional standards. It has to be broadcastable, so that when it's made, it can be shown on TV to those high standards.
One of the best bits of feedback that we get after the Adventure Film Academy week's done is that they were expecting to learn a lot, and they clearly have learnt a lot, but the high pace and pressure of the week is the one thing they remember. And often a year later, people will come back to us and say that it's still one of the best things they ever did in their life.
It's really, really good to see how people get empowered, how people start being completely bewildered, and at the end of the week, think, hey, I can make a film.
If you'd like to take part in this year's course and try your hand at adventure filmmaking, follow us on Facebook, where you'll find more information and all the details you'll need to apply. Welcome back to the triathlon here on Kerrera. Now, I'm heading to the finish line near Guyland Castle as the lead competitors hurtle across the brackeny hillside to this southern tip of the island. Back at transition though, most of the racers are changing from 2 wheels to 2 feet.
Feel ready and up for the run now?
Give me 2 minutes, I'll find out. I hope my legs are okay.
Ooh. Decent cycle?
Brilliant cycle, really good. Lots of steep descents and fast, loose, rocky descents and a few technical bits in there. I'm just waiting to see what happens really, it's not my strong point.
You've got proper fell running shoes though, so you're prepared well.
Yes. You caught me there. Again, better running downhill than uphill.
The bike to run transition is the hardest because the minute you get off the bike and start running, you tend to have got a lot of blood pooled in your legs, and so it's very difficult when you first get going. So the first few steps are quite wobbly. Blood's draining from your brain and you're in debt and everything. It's quite awkward. So it takes about the first 100 metres or so to get your legs properly sorted, and after that, then you just got to plod on really. It's a bit of a survival, the run.
Loving it. Lovely way to start the day.
The running is not my strongest point.
Still going.
I'm hoping I can fast walk, jog, we'll see.
It's hellish, but it's brilliant. There's about 200 metres of hill to climb, some quite steep climbs in that. So that's going to kind of sort a few people out, I imagine. Hopefully, to my benefit.
So not competitive at all?
Oh, no. Yeah. No.
We're nearly there yet.
It's a proper hill run, and some of the vegetation is tussocky grass and heather and bracken, but most of it is very runnable and green grass, and it'd be very enjoyable for them to do.
It's a sprint triathlon, but for those who are used to doing normal sprint triathlons, just how different will this be?
I would hesitate at calling it a sprint triathlon. It's going to be more than that. If you try and sprint it, I think you'll burn out before the end, especially on the last hill section, because you do climb up to over 600 feet.
The fastest racers are now approaching that high point, and it's Alex Johnson still in the lead. But not far behind, he's been chased hard by Sean McFarlane and Stephen McInnes. McNally from Dunfermline has powered into 4th place. And the leading woman, Kerry McPhee, has moved up to 5th place overall. She's having a tremendous race.
I really like hill running, this type of running, so I don't know why, I just really enjoy it, getting off the bike and going. Although the last 3 races that I've done, I've been sick on the run. My nutrition's been a nightmare, so today is a test of nutritional strength, see if I can hold off being sick and just go for it.
So how important is it to get the nutrition and the hydration right?
It's pretty important if it ends up making you sick, but this isn't too long a race, so it shouldn't really be an issue. I had my porridge this morning and my cup of coffee, so that should do me.
By now, the competitors have completed the 550-metre swim, 15-kilometre bike ride, and are well into the run. The body is beginning to ache, and the steepest uphill section is still to come. This is where those hours of training pay off.
At the moment, I'm using this race as a tune-up for the British Champs. So the type of training I'm doing is about 5 or 6 swims a week just now. Lots of road biking actually, just to bring up my bike strength. And then lots of running as well. I'll do one long run, about an hour and a half a week, and then one threshold run, which is just as fast as you can hold. And then one interval session, which is fast and slow, and then a few more fillers, just nice and easy.
An intense training regime for someone at the very top of this sport. But everyone in today's race has prepared for it in their own way.
I always do a bit of, I suppose, recreational running. I do a lot of long days on hills, scrambling, climbing, things like that.
What would your strengths then?
Keeping going. I think that's probably my only strength.
I don't train as much as I should for sure. I mean, I don't practice transition or anything like that. So for me, it's just a way for keeping fit. So I go out every week, do swimming maybe twice a week, running a couple of times a week, cycling a couple of times a week. So I don't take it too seriously.
My main aim is to make sure I keep moving. It's so tempting on the steeper sections to just sort of stop, and that just loses you time. So I want to keep going. So that'll be my aim for success. If I know I've done the run as best I can, then that's great.
Grinning through it,
Excellent.
Training and endurance is key to enjoying this race, especially one organised by Paul McGreal. Paul's got a reputation for choosing locations which will test competitors to the full.
We've taken them on pretty much a grand tour of the island hotspots. They'll be seeing, the coast and fabulous views across to Mull and back to the mainland and down the Sound and across to Oban. They'll see some great sights and they'll be well and truly exposed in full-on Scottish countryside.
I know Paul McGreal, the organiser, so I knew it would be off-road almost the whole way, and it was tough. There was one part, he'd said in the race briefing, I'm sure, that there'd be at no point will you be on all fours, but there was one part we were on all fours climbing up the summit, actually using our arms. So, it was a tough run, a very tough run.
We're at the top and it's all downhill, but it's very great fun. Great fun.
Done it! A breeze!
What a wonderful day.
Whose idea was that?
By now, the fastest racers are running for home, and once again, the lead has changed. Sean McFarlane has moved up from 2nd place to take the lead. He's closely followed by Stephen McInnes, and Alex Johnson has dropped from 1st to 3rd place.
I was leading the run for up until the top, and then Stephen McInnes caught me, and he just passed me as we started to descend off the top, and then we went the wrong way. So by the time we'd rejoined, me and Stephen had dropped down to 2nd and 3rd.
Just behind this front group, McNally is hanging on to 4th place, and Kerry McPhee is still in 5th. But back up the hill, there are some tired limbs.
Oh, yes. Downhill now.
Yeah, kicks you right in the way down.
Nice.
I'm not in pain.
But at the finish, it's Sean McFarlane over the line first in a fantastic time of 1 hour, 10 minutes and 10 seconds. Stephen McInnes is a very close second, just 4 seconds behind.
Well done, buddy.
A first place for you, but a tight one.
Yeah, it was a struggle today. There was a few bits and pieces where we went the wrong way. There was a couple of guys in the run that were just ahead of me coming off the hill, and they went the wrong way. I think I would have caught the second place guy, but the first place guy was pretty strong. I'd gone the wrong way on the bike, but it was tough today. It was very tough, very tough.
And it's weird because the conditions were fairly benign. It wasn't windy. It was.
No, it was just the off-road element of it. It was, especially the run, the whole thing was off-road, and it wasn't even on tracks all the time. So it was through heather, bracken, and it was beautifully marked, I have to say. But you're not always looking at the ground, I guess, and looking for markers. And as I say, I made that mistake on the bike, and then those guys made it on the run. So, but it's up to competitors to know the course. So yes, it's our fault.
Very close second place finish for you.
Yeah, a bit close, but tried to claw it back, but just no chance. I made a wee, I was in the lead just about half a mile before the end, and I took a wrong turning, and it's probably cost me the win, so, but hey-ho.
Third to finish is Alec Johnson, who completed the course in 1 hour 11 minutes. Just 15 seconds behind, Mick Nally's achieved a very close 4th place. And what an amazing performance from Kerry McPhee. 5th finisher overall, the first woman to cross the line in a time of 1 hour 11.24. That's just over a minute behind the first man. A fantastic achievement.
Brilliant race, really good fun.
First over the line, you must be absolutely delighted.
Yeah, really pleased. Yeah, really pleased, and I really enjoyed it because maybe it's because it was so short. But usually you have patches in a race where you're like, oh my goodness, what am I doing? But it was really fun and really pleased to come first.
And what about this place? It looks incredible.
It is amazing. I mean, how many races are there that you swim to the island that you're going to bike and run round? It was amazing. It was really good, really kind of wild. Although on the bike, I got to a gate and it was locked, and the path went there and the path went there, and I thought, I don't know which way to go. I don't know if I'm supposed to open the gate. That doesn't usually happen in a race. So I just waited till the next person came and was like, is this the way? So it really was just like bike around the island and run over it.
Further back, most of the racers are now on the final stage of this Craggy Island Triathlon. The end is almost in sight.
I'm still alive. All evidence to the contrary. I've been nearly there yet.
I really enjoyed it. You can fall over something.
It's really good, yeah.
Yeah.
Scenery's beautiful. Good effort.
This really is a Craggy Island Triathlon, even if our cameraman can't stay upright.
Living the dream, son. How was the run? Oh, you know, up and down.
It's been a perfect day for this very first triathlon on Kerrera.
Oh, hard. Lovely rate though.
Oh, marvellous. Pretty shocked. Hyperventilating all the way around. Good race though, great race.
And at the end, there's a great way to cool off.
Thoroughly enjoyed it. I'm enjoying the finish as well. Terrific finish, terrific spot, eh?
And just a reminder of the final results. For the men, 3rd place went to Alex Johnson with a time of 1 hour 11 minutes exactly. Stephen McInnes came home in a time of 1 hour 10.14 to take 2nd place. But just 4 seconds faster was Sean McFarlane in 1:10.10. And in the women's race, 3rd place went to Caroline Wallace with a time of 1 hour 23 minutes and 42 seconds. Coming in 2nd was Karen Powell in a time of 1:20.57. And taking the top place for the women was Kerry McPhee with that fantastic time of 1:11.24. But for everyone, this has been a tremendous achievement.
I'm going to be last, but I'm going to finish.
But you've done it!
And that's it for this month's adventure show. Next time we have a special programme. We head to the northwest of Scotland to celebrate the little-known event that gave birth to modern climbing. Until then, bye for now.